Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the deep dive.
Walaikum salam.
Today we're plunging into just a really rich and foundational discussion that Dr. Maqsood Azeemi shared back on December 4th, 2025.
Yes, and what's so powerful about this material is how it connects these, seemingly spiritual concepts directly to, well, to pure physics.
Yeah.
It's the kind of knowledge that can genuinely shift your entire perspective.
It really can. Our mission for this dive is to, unpack the core insights from what Dr. Sahib discussed.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at how our own mindset, our approach to effort, what he calls our tarzi fikr, is either working with or, well, directly against the laws that govern creation itself.
Exactly, and that includes some really critical concepts, things like intercession or safarish, the universal laws of repetition, the science of human potential energy or quantum, and a distinction that I think is crucial for everyone to understand: the difference between true justice, adl, and simple equality, or insaf.
It's a huge landscape of ideas, but they're all interconnected. So let's just dive right in. Dr. Sahib started with a concept it's so deeply woven into our culture, but he argues it's often misunderstood and even misused, the idea of safarish.
Yes, safarish, intercession, recommendation. It's a central idea in many belief systems. But, the way Dr. Sahib approached it was not just as a theological point, but as a kind of a psychological mirror. He asked a very direct question: why do we seek intercession in the first place?
And he didn't pull any punches with the answer, did he? He basically called it an excuse for our own had harami.
He did, and had harami. And that's a powerful term. You mean, actively avoiding effort, kind of profound laziness.
Yeah.
Dr. Sahib's point was that this constant search for a shortcut, this belief that some external person or a saint or a connection will somehow bypass the universal rules for us. It's the clearest symptom of what he called tarzit fikr ka bigger.
A corruption in the way we think.
A corruption in our very mode of thinking.
Yes.
It frames this laziness not just as a simple moral failing, but as a catastrophic failure of logic.
How so? A failure of logic.
Well, think about it. If you accept that the universe operates on systematic, unbreakable laws like gravity, for instance, then believing in a loophole that only applies to you is. It's just irrational. You're waiting for an exception to a rule that has no exceptions.
So if you're always looking for that easy way out, hoping for some reward you didn't really earn, you've got what you might call a lottery mentality.
That's the perfect term for it, a lottery mentality. You're not focused on your own required actions. You're focused on finding an external recommendation to negate those actions.
Yeah.
And that mindset fundamentally contradicts the entire system of creation.
Okay, so if shortcuts are off the table, divinely and logically, what is the actual law? What is the operational formula that governs action and consequence? This, I think, leads us straight to those two divine attributes Dr. Sahib described, Yubdi and Yuvidu.
Yes, and this is where it gets really fascinating. Dr. Sahib was very clear that these aren't just, abstract attributes to be memorized. They're the constant operating formula for how the system works, how it creates, how it sustains, how it runs.
So what are they exactly?
Yubdi is the initiator. It's the start, the first spark, the first action, the creation of an event. But that's only half the equation. The other half is Yuidu, the repeater.
The repeat.
The repeater. It's the sustain, the continuation, the necessary repetition that takes that initial spark and carries it all the way to completion.
So wait, this reframes creation. It's not a single big bang, a one-and-done event. It's an ongoing process. If you initiate something, if you have Yubdi moment, the system demands Yuidu repetition to keep it going.
It absolutely does. And the examples Dr. Sahib used make this law so clear, so accessible. Just think about the simple act of walking.
Okay.
Your very first step, that's Yubdi. It's the initiation of movement. But one step doesn't get you to your destination, does it?
Of course not.
To get there, you have to keep taking steps over and over. Every single step after that first one is Yuidu. It's the repetition that's required to actually close the distance and reach the goal.
It's so simple, but it's profound. The goal isn't reached by starting, it's reached by repeating.
And this law scales up infinitely. Look at biology. That's where it gets, as you said, really complex and amazing. The formation of a single zygote in the womb. That's Yubdi, the spark of life.
The initiation.
The initiation.
What?
But what follows? The constant, ceaseless, repetitive division of cells. 1 becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. That is Yuidu on a massive scale. And it's that repetition that builds a complete human being.
And Dr. Sahib mentioned this incredible fact that every cell in our body gets replaced over a period of, 3 years?
That's right. Every single cell. And yet you look in the mirror and you're still you. The physical matter has been completely swapped out, but the person, the identity, remains.
So, what does that mean? How is identity sustained if the building blocks are always changing? Does that imply that Yubdi, the repetition, isn't just copying cells? It's copying information, memory, consciousness.
Now you're getting to the heart of it. That's the critical question. The system, through this law of Yubdi, isn't just repeating physical form. It's repeating the blueprint. It's sustaining the original informational pattern. And this leads to an even deeper set of concepts Dr. Saib discussed. Yugi, which means giving life, and Umid, causing death or returning to the origin.
Okay.
And here he quoted Khawaja Shamsuddin Azeemi's Murshid, Qalandar Baba Auliya, who provided a very deep spiritual context for these terms.
Right, so this is Dr. Sahib's spiritual grandfather, so to speak.
Exactly. And Qalandar Baba Auliya's view was that the inner meaning of these is Fazlan Koz into Karna and Fazlan Marna.
Which means reviving and killing distances.
Reviving and killing distances. It sounds abstract, but think about it. If my physical sight is limited by the horizon, how do I kill that distance? How do I see beyond it?
I have no idea.
By understanding that these limits are not absolute. They're rooted in our physical senses. In this context, Umid, or death, isn't annihilation. It's just the life process returning to its origin, to its blueprint, moving beyond the temporary constraint of the physical body.
So killing distances is about transcending our sensory boundaries.
It is. And to do that, you need to apply something. You need fuel. You need power. And that brings us directly to the engine that drives this entire system.
The engine being tawanai, energy, which, as Dr. Sahib pointed out, is what modern science now calls quantum. Our listeners really need to grasp this because it's the key to everything. How did he define it?
He defined it through pure physics, which makes it very concrete. He said any wave, whether it's light or sound or even a thought, has three core components.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's wavelength or tool image. Second, there's frequency. And third, there's energy. And that energy is the quantum. A wave is nothing more than the vehicle for transmitting that energy, that quantum, from one point to another.
And we're all constantly generating waves of thought, of intention. But it's the power behind them that makes the difference. This is where his torch analogy becomes so important. It's the key to applying this idea.
It's the perfect analogy. Absolutely. He said, imagine you have a standard flashlight, a torch. The shape of the light beam, its wavelength and frequency, that's fixed by the design of the torch.
Right.
Now, you put one battery cell in it, the light travels, say, 20 feet. It has a certain amount of energy. But now, you take out that one cell and you put in 4 fresh cells.
Okay.
The light beam itself, its shape, its frequency, that hasn't changed. But the tawanai, the quantum of energy behind it, has just increased 4-fold. And now that same light beam travels maybe 100 feet.
So translating that to the human mind, we all have our own baseline frequency, our own personality, let's say. But the range of our thoughts, the impact of our intentions, our clarity, all that is determined by our internal tawanai, our inner battery level.
Precisely. A mind running on one cell will have a limited view and limited impact. A mind supercharged with 4 cells can project its focus and grasp reality 4 times farther. This is the actual mechanism behind what we call heightened awareness or intuition.
And this is where the London Tower example came in.
Yes. This was an example from Khawaja Shamsuddin Azeemi's Murshid, Qalandar Baba Auliya. He said, if you're sitting at home and you try to visualize the London Tower, for most people, the image in your mind's eye is weak, it's faint. He called this natwani a weakness of sight.
It's a low-energy image. You're operating on low tawanai.
Exactly. But, and this is the spiritual insight, if you could fill tawanai into the gaze, if you could consciously invest a huge amount of focused mental energy into that thought, that memory of the London Tower could appear in your mind as brightly, as vividly, as if you were standing right in front of it.
So the only difference between a vague memory and a vivid, real-time internal vision is the amount of energy you apply to it.
It's just the application of energy. And this has a massive practical takeaway for all of us. Increasing your mental tawanai isn't some mystical, unattainable thing. It's a systematic practice. It's like charging a battery.
And it connects right back to Yubdi, the repetition. The repetition of focus, of meditation, of consistent practice. That's what builds up the charge in the battery.
It connects perfectly. And this is how Dr. Sahib drew it all together. He said those spiritual feats that people call karamat or kash miracles or unveilings, they aren't supernatural exceptions to the rules of the universe.
They are the rules of the universe.
They are the result of scientifically applying enormous amounts of conscious energy to the mind and the senses. It's an attainable science. It is not, as he said, only seen as some secret knowledge that's reserved only for a special chosen few.
But doesn't that, I mean, isn't there a risk there? I mean, if you say that things we often associate with deep faith are just applied science, does that reduce faith to just a technique?
You know, what Dr. Sahib's analysis suggests is actually the complete opposite. It doesn't reduce faith. It elevates science by showing that the entire creation is governed by perfect divine laws. The energy, the quantum, it exists and it operates predictably. The failure of modern science, as he noted, is that they recognize the quantum, but they refuse to acknowledge the creator, the Lord, of that quantum.
So the systematic nature of it all is actually the ultimate proof of a divine system, not a denial of it.
That's the point. It is the proof.
Wow. Okay,
So-
that sets up the next part of the analysis perfectly. Because if all this effort, all this tawanai is invested into the system, how is it judged? How is it rewarded? We use words like justice and fairness all the time, but Dr. Sahib made a critical distinction between two concepts, ad and insaf.
And this distinction is, I think, one of the most important things for people to understand if they feel the world is unfair. We use the words interchangeably, but they are fundamentally different. Insaf comes from the word nis, which means half. It applies fairness or equality.
Equal distribution.
Equal distribution of basic opportunities and resources. For example, the system provides sunlight, air, water, soil. It provides these things equally to every plant, every animal, every human. No one gets more sun or less air from the system. That's the equality of the starting line. That is Insaf.
Okay, so that's the baseline fairness. But what about justice? What's odd?
True justice is of. And Dr. Sahib's definition for this was hisab qadr jusa, a share, according to size. Or, more accurately, according to effort and capacity. This is equity, not equality.
So an ant needs and gets an ant-sized portion of food. An elephant needs and gets an elephant-sized portion.
Exactly. It's proportional. So Insaf gives everyone the opportunity to participate, but Adl is the law that determines the outcome based on the energy, the effort, the tawanai you actually expend.
Ah, so this is huge. It means that disparities in results aren't a failure of the system's fairness. They are the direct, systematic, and just output of the varying levels of effort that were put in.
Precisely. Yeah. If you invest greater tawanai, which means greater size and struggle, the system of Adl guarantees you a proportionally greater return. It's not random. It's not arbitrary. It's a law. And the Dastarkwan analogy from Khawaja Shamsuddin Azeemi illustrates this perfectly.
Right. Dr. Sahib shared this from his Murshid. Tell us about the Dastarkwan, the dining mat analogy.
Khawaja Shamsuddin Azeemi described the world as a vast Dastarkwan, a dining mat, laid out by Allah with every kind of food, every blessing you can possibly imagine. Now, some dishes, the basics, the necessities like simple bread, roti, and chutney, they are placed right in front of you, within easy reach.
Okay.
But the more desirable dishes, the gourmet meals,
Yeah.
like the prized merg musalam, the whole roasted chicken, that are placed much farther away down the other end of the mat.
The implication being everything is there. It has all been provided. But we don't all possess everything.
And the question is, why not? Allah has provided the opportunity. That's insaf, the food is on the mat. But accessing the better dishes requires effort. That's adl. It's our own lack of energy, our lack of tawanai or willpower that stops us from simply reaching out a bit farther or extending our hand or maybe even getting up and walking the few steps needed to get that dish we desire.
We complain about our portion while refusing to move toward the better one that's already been served. The limitation is internal, not external.
That is the entire lesson. The limitation is always our own refusal to expend the required energy.
That just ties everything together so beautifully, from avoiding hatarami all the way to understanding adl. So Dr. Sahib then took this whole idea of self-imposed limits, and he applied it to the biggest constraints we think we have, time and space. He used a very complex rubai, a quatrain, to completely challenge our idea of reality.
Yes, and this is where you really have to stretch your mind, because it forces us to redefine what we even think reality is. The Rubai, he shared, describes different realms, and it mentions that the place we call Fana annihilation, or death, is actually Abad. It's an inhabited land.
Inhabited.
Inhabited, and it's a land free from our concepts of space and time. The line was, "Usmulke ander na zamina na jahan." In that land, there is no earth, no world as we understand it.
If death isn't the end, but a return to an origin, a different state of being, then our linear idea of time must be wrong. Time itself must be relative.
It is. Dr. Sahib explained that every single moment that passes is, in a sense, dying. It's returning to its origin. Our life is a constant cycle of connecting to a new moment and letting the old one go. that Yubdi, again, constant repetition. And this relativity of time isn't just philosophy. It's proven by Qalandar Baba Auliya's star example.
The star that's 10 million light years away.
Exactly. When you stand on Earth and look at that star tonight, the light you're seeing didn't leave the star tonight. It left that star 10 million years ago.
So that past moment from 10 million years ago is literally intersecting with my present moment right now. The past is present.
The past is present in your now. And the conceptual implication of that is staggering. If the past can exist in the present, then the future must also exist in some form right now. It proves that time and space are not absolute realities. They are, as Dr. Sahib said, referential quantities.
Referential quantities, meaning they're just concepts we create with our mind to make sense of things. They're imposed by our tarzi fikr, our way of thinking.
That's it. If you change your way of thinking, you change your relationship with time and space. Even simple things like high and low, Bolandi and Pasti. He gave the example of a person at the North Pole and a person at the South Pole.
Right.
They're upside down relative to each other, but they both instinctively feel at up bliss. Heaven is above their own head. The direction isn't defined by some universal coordinate system. It's defined by where our own mental requirements, our aspirations are traveling. All limitation, therefore, is a construct of perspective.
This dive, it really does reshape everything. Whether you're talking about physics or justice or spiritual growth, the core message is the same. Self-reliance, systematic effort, and using your energy strategically to break free from the limits your own mind has created.
The system is perfect. It is engineered on the principle of Adl. The only variable is the quantity of tawanai we are willing to invest. You know, I was struck by Dr. Shahida's suggestion that Dr. Sahib mentioned about doing monthly recaps of these discussions.
Why that specifically?
Because that practice itself, consistent review, clarification, going over the material again, that is the absolute definition of Yudu. It's using repetition to sustain and embed the initial knowledge, turning a flash of insight into a permanent part of your understanding. It's the highest form of learning.
So final thought for our listeners, if time and space are just relative constraints of your tarzi fikr, what limiting belief, which is just the concept of space or a distance you haven't yet crossed, are you willing to collapse today by finally investing your full tawanai?
A powerful question.
Thank you so much to all our listeners for giving us your time today. We truly hope this discussion proves beneficial for you. And you know, if this conversation resonated with you, please consider forwarding it to your friends, especially those who keep asking about spirituality and silsile Azeemi.
Your sharing really does help others find this knowledge.
It does. It helps the platform reach more people who might be searching for these answers. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and like. Lots of prayers for all of you.
Lots of prayers. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz to all.